The final law is make it satisfying. This one I've thought about, making it satisfying. I do think it's important, but I do, when we're talking about Islamic practices, I do think we need to be careful about our intention because you need to think about why are you doing it? We don't do acts of worship for worldly rewards. So I guess with this one, you have to think about that aspect of it. But what he says is the important way to make a habit stick is to feel successful, even if it is in a small way. Because the way human beings are, we want immediate pleasure or immediate reward. If someone says to you, if you do this 10 years later, you'll get that, often it's very hard. It requires more energy because you're not seeing the reward straight away. When you see the reward for something straight away, you're more likely to do it. Feeling of success is that the effort paid off and the work was worth it. So that's why he talks about rewarding, using reward to incentivize you and to keep you doing things. So I've given here examples, but as I said, I haven't used Islamic examples because it's a bit, I just feel like it blurs the intention otherwise. But let's say you want to reduce carb intake to lose weight. Okay, so say you want to lose 10 kilos. You reduce carb or you do some sort of dieting. He gives this type of example. Put aside $5 for each kilo you lose for the dress you want to buy, or $50. I don't know. Depends on how much the dress you want to buy costs. But again, the idea is you're giving yourself small rewards rather than waiting until you've lost 10 or 20 kilos, which is, feels like it's a long way away. Each time you fulfill a milestone, which is losing 1 kilo in this case, you're rewarding yourself with something. And that reward can be an incentive for you to keep going. Let's say another one, you want to cook healthy meals at home, right? So you feel like, oh, I'm just eating too much junk food, takeaway, fast food. I want to cook healthy food at home more. And also it's going to not cost me as much. It's going to be more cheaper. It's going to be cheaper because, takeaway food's more expensive. So an example of what you can do is put aside $50 for each meal you cook at home and then say that $50 is contribution towards a holiday. So you can see how, this is working in two ways. One, you're going to be eating healthy at home more, but also you're saving the money that you're saving from not eating out, you're going to go on a holiday with it. So that becomes an incentive as well. And as you see the money going up from $50, $100, $500, $1,000, it's like, wow, there's, that reward is coming in and it makes it easier to stick to that habit. And the last one is, I can't see it, walking. Treat yourself to an outing for walking daily. So you want to walk daily. So say you struggle again, but each time you do a complete 7 days of walking, you say, I'm going to treat myself to an outing. And so that becomes an incentive. It's like, okay, I've walked for 4 days. If I walk 3 more days, I'm going to treat myself to an outing. So again, there's that incentive. So the reward system can help, but you need to work out what reward works for you. And the reward has to be something that's beneficial for you as well. For example, if you want to be healthy, but then you go and your reward is to eat junk food, it's not going to quite work unless you say, well, I'm only going to eat junk food on 1 day a week and I'm going to eat healthy 6 days. As in, if I eat healthy for 6 days, then I can eat junk food on the 7th day. So that could still work because at least you're not eating junk food 7 days a week. You're only eating it 1 day a week. So you've got to think about what would work for you. Habit tracking. This is also very powerful because the minute you start tracking, you know how you're doing. Because if you're not tracking habits, you could be deluding yourself thinking, oh, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. But the minute you start to track, it changes things. There's the reality hits of what's working and what's not. And it also becomes an incentive because where you want to put across, if you don't do that particular act, you can't put across. And so it can incentivize you to do it. Tracking becomes a reward in of itself. Crossing off a task on a to-do list. I do this all the time. I write down, I'm just looking at my to-do list now. I write a to-do list One, it helps me to take it out of my brain and put it onto paper, so it's good. It's not all in my head. But also, each time I do it, what I need to do, I tick it off. And there is that dopamine rush that happens when I do that because it's like, yes, I've completed this task and I can tick it off. So that kind of tracking is really good. So, for example, another one, writing an X on your calendar for every juz of the Quran you read. So if you had a spreadsheet and it's like, okay, juz one, cross, juz two, cross, and then you could put a cross every time you complete reading a juz, then you're tracking it. You keep track of what you've achieved and what there is to go, and that again can be very motivating. Another example I thought of is putting a marble in a jar for each time you wake up for tahajjud. Let's say you want to wake up for tahajjud. It's something you really want. It's, you know, in this case, I feel like you can't use rewards. It's telling yourself, if I wake up for tahajjud, I'll pay myself $100. It just doesn't feel right because you're doing it for the sake of Allah. But if you put a marble in a jar, it's visible. That's why I think those kind of acts can work. It's visible, and so if the number of marbles in a jar are increasing, you're like, okay, I have been waking up at tahajjud, alhamdulillah. So these kind of trackings can help to show you where you are. And James Clear gives many examples of this. Like if you want to write a book, even each time you write you know, uh, write a page or a paragraph, you put a clip in a jar. Each time you do something, you might put a coin in a jar. So they can really help you to they act as a reward and therefore incentivize for you to do it. Now, what's really important is that we're going to have bad days. When we're trying to create good habits, we are going to have bad days when we're not going to be able to keep up with doing what we're doing. But what's important in this case is you just have to show up. Even if you don't do the habit fully as you want to, do some part of it. So don't break the chain. He really emphasizes this. Lost days hurt you more than successful days help you. So lost days hurt you more than successful days. So you don't want to lose more than one day because the minute you do that, then it kind of goes downhill from there. So yes, you might have a bad day. On that bad day, let's say, right, if your habit is to read 10 pages of Quran per day, on that bad day, just read one page. It's better than no pages. So read something. So you're still connected to that habit to some degree. So that's still good. But even if one day you miss it, the next day, just get back on it. Don't give up. Don't break the chain for more than one day because the chances are that it will come to a stall, basically. And then breaking a bad habit, make it less satisfying. I really like this as well. As in, how can you prevent yourself from breaking a habit? That should say breaking a good habit, make it less satisfying. For example, this is where accountability partners can come in very handy. And this could be a very good friend, it could be a spouse, but someone who is your accountability partner. And when you have an accountability partner, because you feel more accountable, you're less likely to give up on that habit. And so you can have these kind of things. If I miss a halakha, I owe you $10. Okay, so say you've got this kind of like contract with a friend, and he actually suggests that you write a contract and you even sign off on it because if you sign it, it becomes more official and set in your mind, and you're more likely to do it. But say you've got a friend and you say, okay, I want to attend halakas every week. If ever I miss one, I have to pay you $10. And that becomes a deterrent for you to miss the halakha. And you've got to know what hurts you. Because if you think, oh, $10, it's nothing, I'll just pay him rather than going to him or her rather than going to the halakha, it's not quite going to work. If you think $50 is better, make it $50. Because if that's going to hurt you, think, oh, $50, that's a lot. I think I'd rather go to the halakha. Then make it $50. So you've got to know what hurts you, basically. Not too painful, but makes you uncomfortable and becomes a deterrent for you so that you continue with the habit. Another one is if I don't read Quran on a set day, I need to message you and inform you. Okay, so say that's your habit you want to form. I want to read Quran daily, 10 pages a day, let's say. And every time you don't, you've got to message your friend. Again, that's not easy. Like to say, dear Salam, da, 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 I didn't read my Quran yesterday. That's a bit hard to admit to. And so that could be a deterrent. And so with Fajr, if you're struggling to wake up for Fajr prayer, you might say to your accountability partner, you might say, if I miss a Fajr prayer, I have to call you that day and tell you that I did not wake up for Fajr prayer. So you can see, if we don't utter or verbalize bad habits, they're easier to forget about and ignore. But if you need to verbalize it, it makes it harder. Like it's the fact that you're putting it into words makes it more difficult. So you are more likely to wake up for Fajr prayer if you know that if you don't wake up, you've got to call your friend and tell them. Okay. So there's some examples for you. But again, you've got to do what works for you and, identify and make it happen. And a key point to remember is, you don't think I've got 20 habits I want to create and I've got to create all these systems for every single habit. Start with one. Identify one good habit you want to do. I know I'm giving you many examples here, but identify one good habit you want to do and think about which approach will work for you, basically. There are so many ideas here. I'm sure there is at least one that resonates with you. So finally, in conclusion, I would say make dua. Like, yes, we're talking about creating habits, and I think all these strategies is a type of dua because you're putting in the effort. You're creating all these ideas and systems. You're putting systems in place, which is a type of dua because you're saying, Allah, I want to have better habits. But make verbal dua as well, that Allah makes it easy for you, that you are able to stick to these good habits. So don't just rely on yourself and the systems, but tap into the power of Allah. Because remember, there's a hadith, nothing repels the divine decree but supplication, the dua. So dua has a powerful and can change your qadar, the divine decree. So don't underestimate the power of dua, no matter what the habit is. And don't think, oh, this habit, say losing weight, oh, I don't want to ask Allah about that. It seems so petty. Nothing is petty. You can ask Allah for anything that's great or small. So ask of Him. Secondly, keep your intention pure. Keep your intention pure for matters relating to worship. Okay, so because this whole habits that we talked about, a lot of it is about rewards. But when we're doing acts of worship, it's really important that we do it for the sake of Allah. The systems are there to help us to get there, but we're not doing it for rewards in this life. We're not doing it for $10, $20. We're not doing it because we want to be we don't want to be embarrassed to our friend. We have to make sure that at the end of the day, we're doing these acts of worship for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So constantly remember that. Thirdly, try strategies which you think will work for you. There are many ideas. Some will resonate with some of you more than others. Identify what you think will work for you and try those. And finally, try again. If it doesn't work once, you've tried one strategy didn't work, try again. Try on another occasion. Maybe this week was a bad week. 1 month later, try again. Don't give up on creating new habits. There's statistics that people who want to, for example, stop smoking, it takes them about 7 attempts before they can actually stop smoking. 7 attempts. There's hardly anyone who can stop smoking after their first attempt. So new habits can take a number of attempts. The key is to say, well, it didn't work this time, but I will try again next time. It didn't work with this system, but I will try another system. So I hope that brings me to the end. I hope you found this beneficial. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to create good habits that transform our lives for the better and gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.